गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। आज हम गनर शॉट में ग्लोबल इनिशिएटिव्स ऑफ चाइना के बारे में बात करेंगे। एंड टू स्पीक रिगार्डिंग द ग्लोबल इनिशिएटिव्स ऑफ चाइना, I have with me General Narasimhan. As you all know, General Narasimhan is a renowned China expert. I consider him as one of the best in the country. वो इसीलिए है कि ही इज बीन इन चाइना, ही इज बीन मिलिट्री एडवाइजर, डिफेंस एडवाइजर देयर, एंड ही इज कमांडेड अ कोर along the LAC, and he's held very important appointments thereafter, and he's also been with the China study group, and he's guided our China policy, right? And for him to come and speak on Gunner Shot is an honor for me. Of course, the second honor is we are both course-mates. We've grown up together through all ranks, and we retired almost at the same time, right? That's, I think, a little more important than anything else. On a lighter note, okay. Now, what are we going to talk about? आज क्या बात करना चाहते हैं, करने वाले हैं? एक मोटा मोटा दृश्य बताता हूँ। हमें सबको पता है, जब से जी जिनपिंग के आए हैं, वो he wants to get a global, sino-centric global order, जहाँ चीन का बोलबाला सबको ज्यादा है, और उसके लिए उन्होंने 3 इनिशिएटिव शुरू किया: ग्लोबल डेवलपमेंट इनिशिएटिव, ग्लोबल सिक्योरिटी इनिशिएटिव और ग्लोबल सिविलाइजेशन इनिशिएटिव, राइट? और इसके बारे में ये धीरे 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 हम सबके को बता दिया गया है। इसका बिना ज्यादा publicity दिए हुए है। Slowly he spread his tentacles, and we hardly know anything about it. It is not in public discourse also. इसीलिए मैं ये 3 इनिशिएटिव के बारे में आज नरसिम्हन को बुलाया है, रिक्वेस्ट किया कि इन चीजों के बारे में हमें बताए और किस तरीके से चाइना थ्रू द बैकडोर वो अपना साइनोसेंट्रिक ग्लोबल ऑर्डर स्थापित करना चाहता है। All yours, General Narasimhan. Please take it on.
Thank you. I'll give an initial brief of all these for a while, and thereafter then we can.
Then we'll have a talk about it. Yeah.
At the outset, let me thank you, Shankar, for getting me on this show. This is the second time I am on, and it's always been a privilege. I've been watching the show with some interest, and whenever I get the time, I do log on and listen to the discussions that go on here. It's very heartening to see that there is so much of emphasis being given to China. The mistake we did in our country probably was, for the first 60 years after independence, we were only looking at Pakistan. I think simultaneously we should have had a look at China, but better late than never.
Yeah.
Starting from about 2005-06 onwards, this shift of emphasis from Pakistan to China started, and now you see it happening in full bloom.
In fact, I would like to just reinforce what you have said. मैंने महसूस किया कि हम सब पाकिस्तान के बारे में सब एक्सपर्ट हैं, चाइना के बारे में बिल्कुल ज़्यादा पता नहीं है हमें। और मैंने ये भी देखा कि चाइना के बारे में अनाप शनाप बोले जा रहे हैं, ऐसे अफवाह बना रहे हैं कि चाइना जैसे कोई अफलातून है हमारा सर पे बैठा हुआ है। और ये इसीलिए है कि we don't know China enough. We've never taken the trouble of knowing China enough. And when you go into the details and you get to the innards of the system, तब पता चलता है कि चाइना क्या चीज है, नहीं है। जब आपको पता है चाइना क्या चीज है, तभी उनके साथ you can deal with them effectively. And that is why in Gunner Shot, 60 to 70% of my programs are on China. And I'm very grateful that people like you can come and give real insight into China. Sorry for the interruption. Please take it on.
No problem. No. मैं जनरल शंकर ने 3 इनिशिएटिव के बारे में बताया था, मैं उसको थोड़ा और पीछे ले जाना चाहता हूँ, और 2 इनिशिएटिव के बारे में भी थोड़ा सा हमको जानकारी जरूरी है। पहले है कि वन बेल्ट वन रोड इनिशिएटिव, जो शी जिनपिंग जब पावर में आए थे, उसी समय उन्होंने अनाउंस किया था 2013 में। उसके बाद में पिछले 9 साल में उसका काफ़ी प्रोग्रेस हुआ है, और पिछले 2-3 साल के अंदर उसके अंदर इन्वेस्टमेंट जो है वो कम भी हुआ है। So it's an initiative which started around that time, basically to export the excess capacity that was existing within the country. And world was going through the international financial crisis, और उनका excess capacity उसको इस्तेमाल करने के लिए जगह नहीं था, तो उनको ये करना पड़ा। अगला एक इनिशिएटिव है सितंबर 2020 में। चाइना ब्रॉट आउट एन इनिशिएटिव कॉल्ड ग्लोबल इनिशिएटिव ऑन डेटा सिक्योरिटी, और ये जो है उसी साल में अगस्त के महीने में यूएस ब्रॉट आउट समथिंग नोन एज अ क्लीन नेटवर्क प्रोग्राम, बेसिकली कंडेमिंग द Chinese for malignant and other kind of network system that they had, and the effort that they make on the data security. So within 1 month, China came back with an initiative called Global Initiative on Data Security. It had 8 clauses, 8 proposals, 6 of them were for the countries and 2 for the ICT companies, which they wanted to do. Basically, it involved I would say 6 things. One thing that came across in this whole process is that China was trying to defend its actions. For example, पहले आप देखेंगे स्टेट्स को बोला गया है कि शुरू में you need to have, just one second, give me a second. Yeah. इन्होंने बोला कि पहला प्रपोजल में इन्होंने बोला जो डेटा सिक्योरिटी को हैंडल करते समय एविडेंस बेस्ड मैनर में इसको करना चाहिए, और सिक्योर द सप्लाई चेन एंड ग्लोबल आईसीटी प्रोडक्ट्स एंड सर्विसेज। दिस वाज द फर्स्ट वन। इसको अगर आप देखेंगे तो इंडिया ने उनका ऐप बैन किया था, उनका जो कंपनीज हैं जो टैक्स का इवेट कर रहे थे उनके ऊपर सर्च वगैरह किया था। तो इसके बेसिस पे उन्होंने ये बनाया कि इट शुड बी हैंडल्ड ऑन एविडेंस बेस्ड मैनर। और जो सप्लाई चेन के बारे में बोला गया, तो वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज चाइना के ऊपर द काइंड ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी डिनायल regime that they brought in just to defend against that. Another proposal came up with data should not be stolen by other countries from another country, and the public interest etc. should be kept in place. So, but cyber espionage, we all know who all do it in the world and how effective these cyber espionage cases are. तीसरा जो था पर्सनल इंफॉर्मेशन के ऊपर, कि पर्सनल इंफॉर्मेशन लोकलाइज नहीं करना चाहिए, यानी कि जो इंफॉर्मेशन चाइनीज कंपनीज अगर इंडिया में हासिल करते हैं, they should retain in India only is what the data localization is talking about. That they didn't want, so that they can access the data, and that can help them in develop the artificial intelligence also. So that is the third one. Fourth one talked about mass surveillance नहीं होना चाहिए states के ऊपर, but then they themselves violated in many number of cases. So like that, there are 5-6 things that they mentioned about. As far as ICT companies are concerned, they talked about 2 things. In fact, 3 things. One, they said that they should not put any backdoor equipment to get the data from the customers. Second, they said the ICT companies should not force the customers to upgrade their systems all the time. And the third thing that they talked about is that the ITC companies should notify if there are any vulnerabilities in their system. That means like Windows, it has got some vulnerability. The Windows people should tell the customer that these are the vulnerabilities that we have in the Windows system. This is the kind of things that they talked about in the thing. Also, they have said that this will help in community with shared future. Community with shared future के बारे में आपको जानना जरूरी है, because this is one of the tenets of Xi Jinping's foreign policy, community of shared destiny in the world. That is what he talks about. That जो भविष्य है वो सबका बराबर होना चाहिए और सबके लिए equal होना चाहिए is the kind of vision that he has been projecting. इसमें भी उन्होंने यही कहा है. And then some of the countries, of course, have joined hands with them on this particular issue. इसी को सपोर्ट करने के लिए शुरू शुरू में काफी दबाव डाला था चाइना ने बाकी कंट्रीज के ऊपर, बाद में थोड़ा सा हल्का हो गया. बट द फैक्ट रिमेन्स दैट दे डिड enact a data security law in 2021, and in March 2023 they announced the setting up of a national data bureau to coordinate all the efforts of data management and digital economy. तो यहां तक है GIDS ग्लोबल इनिशिएटिव ऑन डेटा सिक्योरिटी. अगला है जो लिस्ट में जनरल शंकर ने जो उसमें दिया था, दैट इज द ग्लोबल डेवलपमेंट इनिशिएटिव. दिस ग्लोबल डेवलपमेंट इनिशिएटिव हैज बीन announced by their foreign minister Mr. Wang Yi in September 2020, and thereafter explanations came up. In China we need to understand something. Initiative will come, it will look as if it is not clear how the goals will be, what will happen. Nothing will be clear initially. Slowly and steadily, as they keep talking about this initiative, then they gain the correct kind of the shape and what needs to be achieved, etc. The Global Development Initiative also started like this only. Pardon me. Sorry. Global Development Initiative also started like this only, and they announced it, and thereafter they started actually asking the countries to support the GDI. Today they claim that 100 countries have given their support to the Global Development Initiative, and 68 countries have signed. I mean, some figures say more, but officially, if you go to the website, it says about 68 countries have signed the Memorandum of Understanding for Global Development Initiative. Now, what is the Global Development Initiative? Basically, it was riding on the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations 2030. The Sustainable Development Goals of UN 2030 had 17 goals to achieve by 2030 for the entire world. So they simply said that they will assist in pushing this agenda of the Sustainable Development Goals. So on 21st of June, just about 10 days ago, they have brought out a progress report on the GDI. If you look at it, and thereafter what happened after they announced this, then they went to UN, they spoke about it, and then got the support of the UN Secretary General and others, basically because it is supporting the SDG of UN. So therefore they got the support of the UN people also. Then they created a group of friends. Now the group of friends has grown to about 60 countries now. They held a meeting of the group of friends recently also, and they have decided on 32 fields on which they need to work. And this progress report which they have brought out on 21st of June gives certain things have already been accomplished. Almost about 14 of them they have said they have already accomplished it, and some more are given. So in that you will find 32 areas of cooperation that they talked about, and in each one of them, what is the progress that has been achieved has been given. If you go to the net, you will be able to take it out and you may read it. Okay. So basic thing is, again, they talk about the community of shared destiny in the world. So basic thing is, the community of shared destiny is a thread that runs through One Belt One Road initiative, the Global Initiative on Data Security, the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative. So that is the common thread. So now the status is that the GDI is now gaining momentum, and 60 countries have signed on to it as group of friends, and then they've already put out a progress report kind of a thing to say that in many of these things we have achieved what we wanted to achieve. And amongst the 32 fields, they also took 50 projects which have been finalized in this group of friends, which they'll be working on to complete. So this is where the GDI stands. Now comes to GSI. GSI was announced by Mr. Xi Jinping in POA Forum in April 2022. Now, GSI is something which initially, again, people were very, it was nebulous. It was not very clear what they meant by it, and so there were issues related to that. The thing that people missed out, actually, while observing this is that the preparation for this global security initiative started almost a year ago, when Mr. Wang Yi went to the West Asian countries, that is what we call Middle East, he talked about a peace proposal, 5-point peace and security proposal for the Middle East. Okay, it started there. Thereafter, he goes to Sri Lanka in the month of January and talks about a forum for island nations in the Indian Ocean region. Then he goes to the Pacific Island countries in the month of March 22. And then he talks about a security cooperation agreement with them. And then in month of April, Mr. Xi Jinping announces the Global Security Initiative. The reason why I'm explaining this is before any of these initiatives come into play, there is a build-up that takes place in terms of, there's a building blocks that are put into place, and then that initiative is announced. If you can home on to these building blocks earlier, then you will be in a much better position to handle this as and when these initiatives come into existence. That is the reason I wanted to explain this. Then the Global Security Initiative got actually announced, and thereafter, two of them, the Foreign Minister of China and the Vice Foreign Minister of China, they gave explanatory remarks on the Global Security Initiative, and in that, two things came out very clearly. One, the Chinese are looking at creating an alternative security architecture in the entire world because the present architecture is not actually suiting them. Okay. Second, it also came out very clearly that the One Belt One Road initiative, which I mentioned to you earlier, and the Global Development Initiative, about which I talked to you earlier, both of them will be part of this Global Security Initiative. And in the Global Security Initiative, even the data security, the Global Initiative on Data Security was also mentioned. So what is happening? One Belt One Road initiative came, that became part of the GDI, and that Global Development Initiative. Global Initiative on Data Security came, that became part of Global Security Initiative. And One Belt One Road Initiative, Global Development Initiative, all of them have been subsumed into the Global Security Initiative. And through that, they are trying to create an alternative security system or architecture in the world, which they feel, the present system they feel is not suiting them. They say, make all the right noises. Again, this community of shared security for mankind has come into this also. There's a common thread running across all this. When we are thinking that Global Security Initiative is still not gathered speed and it is being worked upon and things like that. In fact, Mr. Wangi, when he talked about the Global Security Initiative, he mentioned a few things very clearly. And he said that the states have to cooperate on certain issues, etc., etc. And he made the right noises. And then he also talked about the six items under which they need to look at. One is releasing the first list of projects, etc., and then getting the group of these people into a security arrangement kind of a thing. Then they started something known as the C+C5. C+C5 is basically China plus Central Asian republics, the 5 countries of the Central Asian republics. They supported the GSI. Then the ASEAN, they said that ASEAN supported the GSI. Similarly, they have been gathering momentum with the Global Security Initiative. Okay, they talk about not hegemonical, not interfering into others' issues, etc., etc. But those are all there. But they want to create this different architecture. When we are thinking that the Global Security Initiative is still not gathering good amount of speed, on 15th of March this year, Mr. Xi Jinping, when he was talking about Communist Party with the World Parties, there was a meeting. In that, he proposed a Global Civilization Initiative. Now, the Global Civilization Initiative is actually the one which they want to achieve over a period of time, with all these initiatives feeding into it and going through this community of shared destiny in the world is something that they are wanting to achieve. So this is a thread that runs and comes to the Global Civilization Initiative. Here also talk about not being hegemonical. They talk about the shared kind of destiny, shared kind of culture, etc., non-interference in others' internal affairs, etc. ये पूरा जो है इसके अंदर उन्होंने दिया हुआ. The Global Civilization Initiative is still in the works. The details of it or how are they going to achieve it is still not in the clear. They are just about 2 months old. But as you go along, it will become clear as to what they want to do with this. So, in a nutshell, I have given you what are the sequence of the initiatives and how they are panning out and what they want to achieve is what I have said. If there are any questions from Shankar or anybody else, I'll keep answering.
राइट, आई थिंक आपने अच्छी तरीके से विस्तार में बता दिया कि ये चाइना का क्या प्लान है दुनिया को टेक ओवर करने के लिए और उसको चलाने के लिए, क्योंकि वो चाइना सेंट्रिक वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर का मतलब वो अपना बोलबाला पूरा दुनिया में चलाना चाहते हैं और इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है कि वो यूएसए को हटा देना चाहते हैं। और आपने वेरी क्लियरली बता दिया ये पूरा कहानी बीआरआई से शुरू हुआ है, बीआरआई के बाद जीआईडीएस डेटा सिक्योरिटी के साथ शुरू हुआ है। डेटा सिक्योरिटी जब हम सब समझ रहे थे उन्होंने ये ग्लोबल डेवलपमेंट इनिशिएटिव शुरू कर दिया। जब ग्लोबल डेवलपमेंट इनिशिएटिव हम हाल ही में समझ रहे थे तो ये ग्लोबल सिक्योरिटी इनिशिएटिव लिया है और ये सेंट्रल एशियन रिपब्लिक्स को और मिडिल ईस्ट को और ये इंडियन ओशन रीजन में देशों को और पैसिफिक ओशन रीजन के देशों और एशियन और ये 5 ग्रुप को इन्होंने जोड़ के अलग अलग बात करके पीछे छुपा छुपी इन्होंने ग्लोबल सिक्योरिटी इनिशिएटिव का एक आकार दे रहे हैं, एक नया आर्किटेक्चर खास करके इंडो पैसिफिक रीजन में जो वो बोलते हैं एशिया पैसिफिक है। और लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट इन्होंने ये जो ग्लोबल सिविलाइजेशन इंस्टीट्यूट शुरू किया, अभी हाल ही में शुरू किया, और आपने सही बताया इसका आकार हमें पता नहीं है, आकार धीरे धीरे इस साल के आखिर में आएगा। पर मेरा 2-3 सवाल है इसके ऊपर जिसके ऊपर आपका विचार चाहिए। ये जितना भी इनका इनिशिएटिव है इट इज प्रिसाइज्ड ऑन द फैक्ट कि बीआरआई के ऊपर निर्भर है, क्योंकि बीआरआई से इनको बड़ा नेटवर्क मिल गया, एक बेस प्लेटफॉर्म मिल गया है। पर आप देखेंगे कि आजकल बहुत देश जैसे श्रीलंका हुआ, ज़ैम्बिया हुआ, गैम्बिया हुआ, एंगोला हुआ, अफ्रीका में खास करके बहुत लोगों को बीआरआई से प्रॉब्लम है। और वो बीआरआई अभी जैसे सबको पता है कि और सीपीसी जो फ्लैगशिप है बीआरआई का पाकिस्तान में वो भी लड़खड़ा रहा है। आज ही मैंने देखा कि सीपीसी इज लीकिंग, ठीक है ना। तो जब ये इनका जो प्लेटफॉर्म ही लड़खड़ा रहा है, क्या आपके आइडिया में ये जीएसआई, जीडीआई और जीसीआई सफल होंगे या सफल होने का क्या अंदेशा है? आप ये उनका आप व्यू बताइए पहले।
अच्छा, सीपीसी नॉट ओनली सीपीसी, मैं बीआरआई के वन बेल्ट वन रोड इनिशिएटिव मानता हूं मैं उसको, क्योंकि बीआरआई जो है इन्होंने लोगों ने सवाल किया कि भाई किसका रोड है, किसका बेल्ट है, कहाँ जा रहा है,
करेक्ट।
तो उन्होंने अपना नाम बदली करके बीआरआई कर दिया।
नहीं, एक मैं बताना चाहता हूँ, आई कॉल इट अ लूज बेल्ट ऑन अ बम्पी रोड।
व्हाटएवर, सो दैट इज, इन्होंने नाम बदल दिया, बट मैं अभी भी उनको वन बेल्ट वन रोड ही मानता हूँ, क्योंकि उनका वेबसाइट में जाएंगे ईता ईलू लिखा हुआ है जिसका मतलब निकलता है कि वन बेल्ट वन रोड।
वन बेल्ट वन रोड, ओके।
आई कॉल इट ओनली वन बेल्ट वन रोड। सो वन बेल्ट वन रोड जो है जब इन्होंने शुरू किया था 2030 तक उनका इन्वेस्टमेंट होना था 1.4 ट्रिलियन यूएस डॉलर इसके ऊपर। अभी तकरीबन उन्होंने 850 मिलियन से लेके 1 बिलियन, सॉरी 850 बिलियन से लेके 1 ट्रिलियन तक का जो है उन्होंने इन्वेस्टमेंट जो है अभी किया हुआ है इसके अंदर। इसी हाल ही में क्या हुआ, कोविड आने की वजह से और उसके पहले भी चीन का जो इकोनॉमी थोड़ा सा कम मात्रा में बढ़ रहा था, इस वजह से उनका जो इन्वेस्टमेंट जो यहाँ पे चल रहे थे वो उन्होंने कम किया था। दूसरा, मोस्ट ऑफ द इन्वेस्टमेंट्स इनटू द वन बेल्ट वन रोड इनिशिएटिव वेयर इन टर्म्स ऑफ लोन्स, नॉट इन टर्म्स ऑफ ग्रांट्स। सो लोन्स विथ हायर कमर्शियल रेट इंटरेस्ट एंड द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स वर नॉट एक्चुअली ट्रांसपेरेंट। कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स के अंदर क्या है किसी को पता नहीं है, जिन्होंने साइन किया सिर्फ उसी को पता है। So because of these issues, what happened? The One Belt One Road initiative is slowly losing its momentum. But ध्यान रखिए, जितना उन्होंने अभी तक इन्वेस्ट किया है उतना प्रोजेक्ट जमीन पर है।
वो तो है, करेक्ट
है ना। तो जितना देश उससे फायदा उनको मिला, those people are still supporting the Chinese on this. What General Shankar said is absolutely right. There are 40 to 42 countries which we counted which have got problems with the OBR projects. They have issues. I mean, कुछ प्रोजेक्ट से उनका कोई फायदा नहीं है, कुछ प्रोजेक्ट से वो ठीक तरीके से काम नहीं कर रहा है. There are issues related to that. So everybody is actually looking for a rescheduling of loan or a cancelling of the loan, etc., etc., which the Chinese are not willing to do. They can reschedule, but they are not going to give up that money. So because of that, ये जो वन बेल्ट वन रोड इनिशिएटिव है वो थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम में चल रहा है. डेटा सिक्योरिटी के बारे में जो मैंने आपको समझाया था, उसके ऊपर प्रॉब्लम ये हुआ है कि जो मैंने आपको 6 जो स्टेट्स के लिए उन्होंने बताया था, 2 कंपनीज के लिए बताया था, जो मैंने समझाया था आपको, उसमें इन्होंने जो प्रपोज किया है, दोज आर वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू अचीव. जैसे कि आप बोलेंगे कि वी शुड नो द सॉवरेंटी ऑफ डेटा or the territory of data. How do you define these issues?
Yeah.
They are beyond anybody's territory. So there are many issues that they will face into, but then I get a feeling after going through all the initiatives in detail. Yesterday I was in another seminar dealing with GSI. I get a feeling that one is their defensive mechanism is working in all this. जैसे कि वो लोग चीन जो कर रहा है उसके खिलाफ जो कार्रवाइयां चल रही है उसको रोकने के लिए इस प्रकार का इनिशिएटिव चलाए जा रहे हैं, सो दैट दे गेन अ ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल टू सपोर्ट देम एंड फेस द ऑनस्लॉट दैट इज कमिंग अप. जैसे कि आप ये जो जीडीआई है, जीआईडीएस है, इसके अंदर जो टेक्नोलॉजी डिनाइल रेजीम जो अमेरिका और वेस्टर्न कंट्री जो चीन के ऊपर डाल रहे हैं, उनको टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं दे रहे, सेमीकंडक्टर्स के ऊपर पाबंदियां डाली जा रही है. तो इनको रोकने के लिए और इनके साथ उसको लड़ाई करने के लिए, लोगों को इकट्ठा करने के लिए भी ये एक तरीका है कि लॉट ऑफ इनिशिएटिव्स आर लॉन्च, लॉट ऑफ पीपल आर जॉइनिंग हैंड्स, एंड देन यू फाइंड देयर इज अ फ्रंट दैट कम्स अप फॉर एवरीथिंग एल्स. एंड डेटा सिक्योरिटी में एक और चीज इन्होंने, वन थिंग आई डिडंट कवर अर्लियर, द रूल्स आर बीइंग सेट फॉर डेटा नाउ. दुनिया में ये कायम है कि पहले टेक्नोलॉजी आएगा, टेक्नोलॉजी बढ़ेगा, उसके बाद में उसका कंट्रोल रेजीम और उसका ऑर्गेनाइज कैसे करना है उसके बारे में सोचा जाएगा. क्योंकि टेक्नोलॉजी क्या पता नहीं है तो आप उसको कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते, ऑर्गेनाइज नहीं कर सकते. तो टेक्नोलॉजी ऑलवेज एज अ लीड ओवर द ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल स्ट्रक्चर्स एंड द कंट्रोल स्ट्रक्चर. तो इस दौरान में जो आदमी लीड लेगा उसको फायदा है, बिकॉज ही कैन सेट द रूल्स एज पर हिज रिक्वायरमेंट्स, एज पर द डेवलपमेंट दिस कंट्री हैज अचीव्ड. जैसे कि 5G वगैरह में चीन ने किया था. So that kind of a thing is what the Chinese are looking at even in this, in the global initiative. In the development initiative is simple. Basically, they wanted to put everything into one go, ride on this, and try to keep giving an alternate view to the world from the Western so-called rule-based order.
Yeah.
The Western countries call whatever they are dealing with is the rule-based order. So they are now trying to question the rule-based order and say that this rule-based order is not good enough for everybody. Is
Correct.
what they are trying to do. So
Right.
this is something that comes up. So whether these will become successful, if you look at the immediate term, that is the question you asked, Shankar. If you look at the immediate term, it may not be successful.
But in the long term,
over a period of time, over a period of long duration, like for example today, Europe is uncomfortable with US. Because of the way it has to take on the burden of Russia-Ukraine campaign, not getting fuel, oil and supplies from Russia has put actually Europe in trouble, not the US. So US-Europe relations are also in a bit of a tension. So such things when they grow, and Europe doesn't see China as an adversary. I've been to Europe recently. We had very detailed discussions with 4 countries, UK, France, Germany, and everybody. They all feel that China is far away. They need their economic sustenance through China, and therefore they do not consider them as a security threat as yet. They may consider them later. But at this point in time, their number one adversary is Russia, and they need to deal with it. So when such things take place, and when China is able to push those things, you will find that there will be some gathering of momentum into these initiatives. So over a period of time, we need to wait and watch this.
Yeah, that's one. दूसरी बात है कि ये मैंने पढ़ा, ये इनका जो ग्लोबल सिक्योरिटी इनिशिएटिव है, ये इन्होंने जितना भी आर्किटेक्चर बनाया है, एक मिडिल ईस्ट का ग्रुप, एक इंडियन ओशन कंट्रीज का ग्रुप, सेंट्रल अफ्रीका, एशियन रिपब्लिक, एशियन एंड पैसिफिक ओशन नेशंस, पैसिफिक आइलैंड ग्रुप, ये 5 ग्रुप्स का इन्होंने जोड़ के दे आर ट्राइंग टू मेक दिस ग्लोबल सिक्योरिटी इनिशिएटिव। और कुछ दिन पहले मैंने एक विश्लेषण पढ़ा है by representatives from the Middle East, Indian Ocean region, ASEAN and others, कि चाइना का प्रॉब्लम ये है कि वो, हालांकि they want to control the security, but they don't want to get involved with the politics of that area, and they want to remain hands off, and they don't want, they're not willing to commit boots on ground, क्योंकि अगर आखिर में अगर आपको सिक्योरिटी मेंटेन करना है किसी इलाके में, you have to police it and put boots on ground. And this is something which, through history, जहां आपको बोलबाला चाहिए, सिर्फ इकोनॉमिक्स के जरिए ये सिक्योरिटी आपका रूल ऑफ द, you can't enforce your rules. You have to put people on ground. और इसमें अगर आप देखेंगे तो चाइना is just not ready to come out. उन्होंने एक आदमी भी इवन अफगानिस्तान में मान लो, कहीं श्रीलंका में मान लो, कहीं भी नहीं लगाया, राइट। और एक बेस है इनका सिर्फ जिबूती में। तो इट्स अ डाइकोटमी, दे वांट टू एस्टैब्लिश अ सिक्योरिटी आर्किटेक्चर बट दे आर नॉट विलिंग टू कमिट ब्लड ऑन इट, एंड no country in the world historically has been able to control an area or a region or the globe without shedding blood. What are your views on that?
Okay. I agree with you on that particular aspect, that they have to commit themselves to various issues, but they are in the initial stages of expanding their influence. Okay. So far, see, when you want to do this kind of a global policeman role, etc., you need to have a very strong navy. That's a prerequisite. They have built up the navy now. Then second thing you need is bases all over the world. Okay. Now today US is able to do that basically because they got 800 odd bases, small and big, all over the world. So anywhere any incident taking place, they are able to react within a specific period. Okay. That is a requirement if China wants to become a global policeman or number 1 power in the world or number 2 power in the world, that they need this. They have just started. Look at Djibouti. They said that it is not going to be a base, but we know that it has become a base.
It's a base, yeah. Even Gwadar will become a base.
It's a proper base at this point in time. Okay. Now, if you look at the US Department of Defense reports of 2021, they mention another 12 locations where the Chinese are expected to build bases. Okay. Now, more and more are coming into limelight. Recently, you would have read about Coco Island. Recently, you would also read about Cuba, where the Chinese were expecting to make a base.
Yeah.
Okay. So slowly and steadily, that thing is happening. The problem is, we are, with most of the analysts I have seen this, they look at today.
No, I'm looking at
tomorrow. Don't look at today. Please don't look at today.
Parson.
You need to look, correct. I agree. You need to look at 10, 15, 20 years ahead of time. China has announced its goal. They are not hiding anything. They have said by 2049 is my second centenary goal. I want to be a world power. By the PLA, they have said by 2049 we should be fully modernized and capable of winning wars globally. This is a stated aim for PLA, stated aim for the country. So they are working towards it. So now if I have to look at China and its capabilities, and present day China capabilities may not be measuring up to that, but you still have 25 years to do that. 27 years to do that. And these gentlemen are very smart. What they have said, they have also put goals 2035. It's the midway point between 2021 and 2049. 2021 is the first centenary goal, which they have said that they have achieved. Whether they achieved or not is a moot point.
That's a different story.
They have announced it. But between 2021 and 2049, 2035 is the midway point. That's the checkpoint that they have created for themselves. By 2035, I want to do this. So they set up the goals 2035 in all the fields: economy, military, society, everything they have put there. So they are going ahead in a very planned manner. So to an extent, I would say that they may be able to achieve it. They may be, see, nobody can foresee 20
Yeah,
years,
we
25
don't know.
years
Yeah, yeah, ये
in
बात है.
today's scenario. But the way they have planned themselves out, including funding, like for example, artificial intelligence, they want to be the world leaders in 2030. And when they brought out that paper, white paper in 2017, they had created three checkpoints: 2020, 2025, 2030, including three levels of achievement. 2020, I want to achieve this. 2025, I want to achieve this. 2030, I want to achieve this. In core technologies, I want to achieve this. In peripheral technologies, I want to achieve this. And this is the funding for each stage. They already set out everything.
Yeah.
So we need to be careful in analyzing this and look at a little ahead than to assess what is present at this point in time in China.
या ये आपकी बात सही है. एक और सवाल है जिसके ऊपर there's a again a dichotomy in this entire plan, चाइना का प्लान जो है. We all know China is aggressive, assertive. तो ये जो assertion है आज के दिन, they are only being able to being assertive in their neighborhood. जब इन्होंने ताइवान के ऊपर 2 बार इन्होंने डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन कर दिया. पहले दोनों जब इनका सेक्रेटरीज आए थे, यूएस सेक्रेटरी, पहले बार नैन्सी पेलोसी जब आई थी, दूसरी बार व्हेन साई इंगवेन वेंट टू यूएसए एंड मेट द सेक्रेटरी केविन मैकार्थी. तो दोनों बार इन्होंने डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन वगैरह कर दिया. उसके तहत क्या हुआ है कि जापान, साउथ कोरिया, फिलीपींस, मलेशिया, इवन इंडोनेशिया, वियतनाम, they have started upping their arms, and they have unka, and और USA has come and opened 4 bases in Philippines now.
4 more places, yeah.
4 more bases in Philippines. इससे क्या है कि ये फर्स्ट आइलैंड चेन में से ब्रेकआउट करना चाइना के लिए मुश्किल होगा. और ये बात बड़ा क्लियर है कि जब तक China is not able to move out of the first island chain, it cannot deploy its navy, right? और इनका ये this dichotomy, they are going ahead कि they will conquer the world and write a new architecture at faraway places, but in their near vicinity where they are probably the most vulnerable, because अगर ये first island bases can be used, it is also quite close to their most developed regions. And right, so is this dichotomy going to have an effect on their entire plan?
Okay.
And of course you also have to take into account, इसमें ये एक और बात जोड़ना पड़ेगा कि China is going through severe internal problems, and these internal problems are not going away in a hurry the way they are, जिस तरीके से ये अपने internal problems को deal कर रहे हैं. और aging और decline of the population जो है वो तो कायम है. इट्स बाय नंबर्स. आपको टेक अ फ्यू थाउजेंड्स, इट्स ऑलमोस्ट नंबर्स, इट्स ऑलमोस्ट मैथमेटिकल. सो अगर ये सब देखते हुए क्या ये ग्लोबल इनिशिएटिव्स बिल्कुल सक्सेसफुल हो जाएंगे, और ये इनका जो अच्छा प्लान है सक्सेसफुल हो जाएगा? और इसके साथ एक और हिस्ट्री जोड़िए कि जो भी प्लान चाइना ने किया, पहले पहले तो अच्छा होता है प्लान, बाद में धीरे धीरे उसमें ये नुक्स निकल आते हैं, राइट? जिस तरीके से बीआरआई के ऊपर प्रॉब्लम हो गया, सबको पता चल गया, कोई उसके नजदीक नहीं जाना चाहता है. ये इनिशिएटिव्स भी ऐसे ही होगा, या ये इनिशिएटिव सिर्फ इसीलिए है कि शी जिनपिंग को बनाने के लिए कि चाइना का सबसे बड़ा लीडर है?
ये आपको ना थोड़ा हिस्ट्री में पीछे जाके देखना पड़ेगा इसको आंसर करने के लिए. I'll just take 30 seconds to explain.
Yeah. Please, no. Take your time. There's no hurry. We are got a lot of time.
You see, today everybody thinks Xi Jinping has done everything.
No, it is
not so. It is not
so.
true. This path has been set out 40 years ago. When they started the modernization program, they took 40 years. They said in 40 years we want to reach at a particular level. They've reached at a particular level. That is one issue. Second thing is, take the issue of South China Sea. No, Chinese are very sensitive to their core interest. They call it core interest, territorial integrity and sovereignty, the internal stability, etc., etc. And then they also include South China Sea in their core interest, slowly and steadily. Then they said, okay, actually South China Sea claim, that 9-line and 11-line, that is not China's, that is Taiwan's claim actually. Taiwan claimed it in 1947 because China became one China, so they derived it from there, and so they propagated this. And then today, if you look at South China Sea, their influence has increased to quite an extent. You are right in saying that there has been pushback on this, but that pushback is basically because China has been pushing hard. So people have to start pushing back. But today, if you look at the situation in South China Sea, you find Japan not having adequate forces to do anything. Taiwan doesn't have adequate forces to do anything. You look at the way the Chinese Coast Guard ships keep browbeating the Philippine Navy as well as the Philippine fishermen. You look at the way the Haiyang 8, the research vessel of China, petroleum research vessel of China, goes and plonks himself in Natuna Sea and keep pushing the Indonesian Navy back. Indonesian Navy back. So you find over a period of time, the China's in, and see the way they are buzzing the US and Canadian ships, US aircraft being buzzed by a J-16. So you find the kind of assertiveness increasing over a period of time. Increasing over a period of time. So this shows some kind of, I would say, some amount of self-confidence in them. We can do this now. Because the first time it happened was in 2001, when they tried to short circuit a Hawkeye E2C Hawkeye plane of US, and a Chinese pilot died, and the plane had to land in Hainan. That was the first time they encountered this. Thereafter, they have been pushing outwards into the South China Sea. So far, and the anti-piracy task which they were doing in Gulf of Aden. Gulf of Aden, that brought the PLA Navy into Indian Ocean 8 years ahead of time. They didn't have plans before 2015 to come to this area. But this anti-piracy gave them an opportunity, and then they grabbed it, and then they came. Every 3 months, they rotated all their ships to give them experience in handling international waters, operating with international navies. And thereafter, they go and do some port calls, etc. Every ship has been out for 6 months. So they have slowly and steadily gaining this confidence of operating away from the shores. So again, this is the point I was trying to tell you. Through you to the audience, not to you.
No, I understand that. I understand that.
Completely. When I say you to the audience, So slowly and steadily, they are working towards a plan to keep pushing outwards. And again, it is also because they talk of 4 concentric circles. I don't know whether you've gone through it. There are 4 concentric circles they talk about in which their influence will grow. The first one is the neighborhood. The second one is the extended neighborhood. The third one is the 2 seas, they call it. And then the two ocean theory. And then the entire world. This is the way it is supposed to expand. So they are working towards it. Whether it will become successful or otherwise is a huge question today. Because you look at 2 things. One is there was a declaration of conduct in the South China Sea in 2002, which they signed to ultimately come to a code of conduct in South China Sea. The single draft negotiating text, they worked on a single draft negotiating text that was circulated to the ASEAN countries in 2018. And the Chinese said within 3 years they will promulgate it. But it is nowhere near it at this point in time. All the 6 countries have been actually pushing back, like you said. So they can push back on these issues. But physically, are they able to push back? Is a huge question.
Is a huge question, right? एक और चीज जो आपने एक बहुत actually अच्छा point निकाला है, history, their historical perspective and what the self confidence. आपने बोला, and which is the way many people say that China has now the self confidence to become assertive physically. Because आप देखिए चाहे whether they are going over a Vietnamese trawler या फायर कर रहे हैं ताइवान के ऊपर या यूएस बोट्स के साथ इंटरफेयर कर रहे हैं, वो सब पहले बात तो ये है कि वो अपना नजदीकी कर रहे हैं, दूर नहीं कर रहे हैं. They are doing it only near them within their own protection umbrella. पर ये कर रहे हैं. So there is one way of looking at it is कि they have got the self confidence to do that. The second way of looking at it is, are they becoming overconfident and are they in a hurry? मैं क्यों मैं क्यों ये बात उठा रहा हूं? मैं वापस हिस्ट्री में जाऊंगा. जब मैं हायर कमांड कोर्स कर रहा था 2000 में, तो मैं ये मेरा थियरी था, मैं थीसिस वाज ऑन चाइना, और उस वक्त मैंने डेंग जियोपिंग का एक बहुत अच्छा व्याख्या पढ़ा था. उसने ये बोला कि भाई हम किस तरीके से सुपर पावर बनेंगे. हम सुपर पावर तभी बन सकते हैं कि हम वी हाइड और स्ट्रेंथ, आई मीन एंड बाइड और टाइम. ये तो सबको पता है, बट ये हाइड और स्ट्रेंथ, बाइड और टाइम किस तरीके से करना है कि इसमें ना लड़ाई मत करो. 10 साल लड़ाई मत करो, आपका स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ेगा. जब 10 साल हो जाएगा आपका, आप यू विल बिकम अ स्ट्रांग पर्सन. 10 साल और लड़ाई मत करो. 10 साल के बाद, 20 साल के बाद, अगर यू कंटिन्यू टू ग्रो योर स्ट्रेंथ, यू बिकम दिस थिंग, एंड इवेंचुअली जब आप 40-50 साल के बाद आप सुपर पावर बन ही जाओगे. और उस वाक्य में उसने बताया कि आप लड़ाई मत करो 2050 तक, और आप सिर्फ बिल्ड करते रहो. आपका जो स्ट्रेंथ है वो अपने आप सुपर पावर बन जाओगे. आपको लड़ाई करने की जरूरत नहीं है. और इसके बीच में ये आता है जी जिनपिंग. हु जिनटाओ और जियांग जेमिन ने ये इनका वो डेंग जियोपिंग का जो रास्ता है वो उसने बिल्कुल अपनाया और उसी के साथ चलते रहे. पर ये जी जिनपिंग जिस दिन से आया 2011-12 से, इसने अपना he has changed the whole story. China has become more aggressive from 2010-11. In fact, he started his entire aggression against India, right? So this aggressive behavior, and now he is putting it here. There is a feeling like what you said, that one part of the story is it is overconfidence. The other part of the story is they're probably in a hurry and probably doing everything prematurely. Your view, and after that we'll, and it could be open-ended view because it's all at this point of time ये सब
I
guesswork ही
agree.
है, right? And उसके बाद हम कुछ सवाल लेंगे.
आप जो बोल रहे हैं वो सही कह रहे हैं. Actually, in 1978, when Deng Xiaoping announced his 4 modernization program,
Modernization programs.
he gave a 24 character strategy, out of which one part of it was Tao Kwang Yang Hui, which you mentioned, is the hide your capabilities and bide your time.
It is strength, yeah.
Okay, that is what he clearly said. But आपने बोला 2010-11, मेरा विचार में their aggressiveness started with that spy plane incident. मैं क्यों बोल रहा हूँ? That may be an accident. That may have been an accident. But the way they handled that plane, you should see it. I was there in China when US finally took that flight away. They landed in Hainan, stripped that whole thing, studied everything that was inside that, and Americans have to cart it in trucks.
Okay.
That aircraft was stripped so badly, they had to cart it in trucks. So it showed us, and Americans had to give an apology that they did a mistake and they want this to be released. They forced it on the Americans. That was the first time. The reason why I said the aggressiveness started earlier, and probably you're right in saying that they started it too early, is by 2003-4, you find the Chinese submarines and the ships have started crossing the Miyako Straits and started buzzing the Sea of Japan. Slowly and steadily, what they did, they started pushing outward, at least towards the first island chain. And the preparation for the reclaiming of the 7 reefs also started before Xi Jinping.
Around that time, yes. There's no doubt.
Everything started earlier. So the aggressiveness, I put it to the 2001 incident and beyond. That is number one. Number two, you are right in saying that they were advised to keep their head down and keep growing. But they decided to probably give it a little, I would say, a wayside thing, and then start showing their aggressiveness a little earlier than what was expected. And when Deng Xiaoping said this, that hide your capabilities and bide your time. He says 40 years. He also said this.
Yeah, 40 years.
So
That's what I also saying. That every 10
don't
years.
do this. And you will become already what he said. But these people somewhere down the line seems to have given that a go by and then started showing the aggressiveness. Now that is what they are showing at this point in time.
Yeah, yeah.
The only thing that I want to add to what you have said is one thing is self-confidence, the other thing is overconfidence.
More confidence.
Whenever you read Chinese claiming anything, he will say, I have gone to the moon and come back sitting
Ah,
here.
what take
Okay, you need to give a little, I would say, discount part of what they are saying and come to the truth. So if he says, I have sorted out the US Navy within the first island chain, it has not
He
happened,
is not
obviously.
done. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. But he will show all that strength. There is a false bravado that you will see. You have to see through that and see the capability and see whether he'll be able to achieve what he wants to say or what he has said is something that comes with a lot of experience and study. Otherwise, if you read the media, you will just say that he's gone here, he's gone there, he's done this, he's done that. You will get a different picture. So you'll have to cut through the clutter, go through the capabilities and see whether he's able to do it or otherwise and come to a conclusion. Then you will find a better answer.
आई थिंक आपने सही बोला कि और मेरा भी यही राय है कि जहां तक चाइना के साथ ताल्लुक है और चाइना के साथ व्यवहार करना है, हमें चाइना को बारीकी से परखना है। और हम अमूमन इंडिया में यही मिस्टेक करते हैं कि वो जो भी बोलता है हम मान लेते हैं वो सर पे हमारा बैठ रहा है। अगर वो जरा सा वो मूवमेंट यांगजी रिज के ऊपर करता है तो हम सोचते हैं वो पूरा देश को हमारा काबू करने के लिए आ रहा है और वो अटैक करने के लिए आ रहा है। उतना क्षमता है ही नहीं पहले तो, राइट। और वो अफलातून नहीं है। और जिस तरीके से हम अन्य आज दोनों ने बात किया है, और इसमें खास बात यह है कि जो भी मैंने जनरल नरसिम्हन ने बताया, मैंने थोड़ा विपरीत बोला है उसको अगेंस्ट। क्यों बोला है? क्योंकि ये नहीं है कि उन्होंने जो बोला गलत बोला है। उन्होंने जो बोला है वो चाइना का प्लान है। मैं क्या निकाल रहा हूँ, चाइना का प्लान का नुक्स निकाल रहा हूँ, ताकि आप सब लोग जितने बैठे हैं, ऐसी बात नहीं है कि उनको नहीं पता कि क्या नुक्स है, उन्होंने खुद बताया। तो आप जो हम ये जो वीडियो सुन रहे हैं, आपको पता होना चाहिए कि चाइना का क्या प्रॉब्लम है, क्या बोलता है और क्या हो सकता है और क्या सही है। और इसके साथ हमारा जो स्ट्रेंथ है, जो अमूमन हम भूल जाते हैं, उसको लगाओगे तो आप देखोगे कि कोई संतुलन आएगा इसके अंदर। और ये नहीं कि बिगी बिल्ली की तरह घर में बैठे रहो, राइट। ये मेरा एंड पॉइंट यही है कि भाई वी आर आल्सो पावर, वी आर आल्सो राइजिंग पावर एंड वी शुड डू थिंग्स राइट। सो दिस इज व्हाट
आपको सिर्फ मिस्टर मोदी का विजिट आप यूएस का देखिए, आपको पता चल जाए हमारा
पावर क्या है। ठीक है ना। चाइना जो भी कर रहा है करने दीजिए उसको सॉर्ट आउट करने के लिए तो हमें समझना चाहिए कि वो कर क्या रहा है। ठीक है। तो ये है, और ये दिस इज एक्चुअली पार्ट ऑफ नो योर एनिमी सीरीज, जहां तक मेरा ख्याल है। सो आई थिंक विल टेक सम क्वेश्चन इफ यू क्वेश्चंस, राइट। या what is the importance of being part of the SCO? It is a China founded and China centered organization for all practical intents and purposes. So why do we have to necessarily be a party?
This is a good question. A lot of people ask this question and I give the answer. Let me give the answer to you here also. See, this is a nice question, Shritik. पहले क्या हुआ, when Shanghai Cooperation Organization जब शुरू हुआ, it started as Shanghai 5. बेसिकली 5 देश थे, उज्बेकिस्तान उसमें शामिल नहीं था। इट वाज शंघाई 5 95 में शुरू हुआ था। 2001 में इट बिकेम एससीओ, शंघाई कोऑपरेशन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। ठीक है। इसमें क्या हुआ, हमारा इंटरेस्ट है सेंट्रल एशियन रिपब्लिक्स में। You know, we have some bases and other things there. It is in the open. I'm not saying anything secret. Okay. China's interests are also there. Russia's interests are also there. If you are out of the system, you wouldn't even know what is happening within the SCO. Therefore, we initially became observers. when I was there in China in 2005, we had become observers. And then the first peace mission exercise, I went and witnessed because I was an observer. So it gives us insight into what China and Russia are doing, what China is doing in Central Asian republics, what Russia is doing in the Central Asian republics. It gives an insight to us. Second, if you are within the system of SEO, you will also understand what decisions are being taken and you can influence those decisions to an extent, which you can't do if you're outside the system. So that is the second thing. Being there, present as to what when things are being discussed, decided, you can influence those decisions and put in your own viewpoint. Like for example, SEO का जो joint statement जितना निकलता आप देखेंगे terrorism का एक जरूर शब्द होगा. The reason is you are targeting Pakistan, though he is also a member. SEO के अंदर में bilateral issues discuss नहीं होते. It is multilateral issues that are getting discussed. Okay, but you will be able to put in your input, your interests and influences into that particular organization. That is the advantage of staying within the SEO.
Yeah. Okay. Sir, do you feel India, instead of pushing for a UNSC seat, UN being irrelevant to handle big power blocks, a strong Quad Plus with Oceania, South Pacific Island could counter China better?
Okay. The UNSC seat, Joanna, we have been trying for the last about, if I remember correctly, even this I discussed with Mr. Menon when he was the ambassador of the issue, Shankar Menon. And he called us to the office and then discussed this. Should we go for it or should we not go for it? Me, political counsel, everybody said, yes, we should go for it. He says, what are the advantages of going into this as a UN Security Council? Because they feel, some of us feel, that if you get into the UN Security Council, it comes with certain responsibilities and liabilities if you are in that system. But on the other hand, if you are not there, it gives you a lot of disadvantages of not being able to discuss and decide what you want to do in the UN system. Like you said, UN is becoming a little more inefficient. I won't say dysfunctional. I'll say it become inefficient, okay, in handling situations of a major nature. But the fact of the matter is, today the UN Security Council, the 5 personal permanent members, are the ones who can decide on anything. If it doesn't suit him, he will not allow it to go through by applying a veto. And so, it is better to be there than not be there. That is the point number 1. Point number 2. Now, since the UN Security Council and UN General Assembly, UN per se, has become inefficient, what is becoming more prominent now are the bilateral, trilateral, plurilateral, and smaller groups. Like for example, एक RAC है, रशिया इंडिया चाइना का ग्रुप है. एक I2U2 है, इंडिया, Israel, UAE and US. Then you have SEO. Then you have smaller, like for example, even you have other systems like C plus C5, which I mentioned to you a little earlier. छोटे छोटे ग्रुप्स बन रहे हैं इस वजह से कि on a particular issue you come together with like-minded countries, achieve what you want to achieve, and then you can continue with further things if you want to do that. So today the alternative to UN seems to be a smaller grouping of like-minded countries coming together to resolve. Like for example, AIB आप ले लीजिए. You take NDB, New Development Bank, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. ये सब छोटे छोटे ग्रुप में शुरू हुए हैं. अभी AIB has got almost about 100 countries as partners in this. Slowly it has grown, and it has grown as an economic entity. So like that, छोटे छोटे groups में they are becoming more and more efficient. So that is what is coming up now. But SEO, there was a definite advantage of our being there. On the other issues, smaller groupings are coming up, which seems to be more effective. Like for example, IPOI, a lot of things are there.
Yeah, right. Now, this is a question he's asking you, and he's going to set off what I have said against me, too, right? Now, let me clarify because this whole story has been misrepresented. Then Shankar has done great in-depth research and analysis predicting coming collapse, downfall of China on many fronts like food, depopulation, economy. Your views. Let me clarify. What I have, my research and my study indicates that the population of China is going to decline is a universal phenomenon. It's going to happen. And any country, its economy is dependent on its population. If you don't have population, you can't have, your economy growing. And technology doesn't replace population. And that, whole story has been seen in Japan. And you'll slowly find that this kind of stagnation which is set in Japan will set in China invariably. But the problem with China, and so there's no collapse of China. What I have been saying is that China will start stagnating, it will slowly start becoming Japan, but a poorer Japan. The problem with China and the communist setup is that it doesn't stop them from being aggressive. So we will see a, a, a China which is aging, stagnating economically, and becoming a poorer Japan, simultaneously going aggressive with all these initiatives because it's in the nature of the Chinese Communist Party to be aggressive and to be number one everywhere, to continuously prove that they are the best system.
I agree. See, can you put that question back on, please?
Yeah.
If you don't mind. Yeah. You have talked about food. Okay. Food, China has been an importer for some time. And the reason for that was in China, they found the cost of production of food in China was more than the cost at which they could import. Okay. So they were importing food. And the second thing is because of the development that were taking place in China, many of the farmlands were taken over for the development. Therefore, you found the food production stagnating at a particular level. The third point about food production in China is the desertification. The western deserts are slowly moving towards the east, with less water being water being less in the rivers.
Yeah.
Slowly, the desertification is increasing. So the farmland, which is existing earlier, is also reducing. So there is a stress on food. But how are they trying to overcome that is something that we need to study. When we did that study, we found in many countries, almost about every continent, in many countries, particularly in Africa, Australia, and even US,
They own farms. They own land, and
they have acquired lands in large amount of quantities.
Yeah. In fact,
And
I just wanted to put across to you. There's a video which we did, about 3 weeks back with Mr. Balasubramaniam of Chennai Center for China Studies.
Yeah.
We've done a complete video and explained. Everyone thinks that China is going to starve tomorrow for lack of food. It will not happen. We have explained in that completely exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, the problem that we will face as a country is when China start importing heavy amounts of grains from outside, like it happened in 2021. They imported 50% of the world's production of corn and maize. As a result, the entire world went into food inflation. So these are the kind of shocks that you will face as far as food is concerned. On depopulation, Shankar is very right. I did a back of the envelope calculation way back in 2008 when I was briefing the Chief of Army Staff as a DDGMI at that time. It allowed me to reach a particular level of 660 million people over the age of 65, which the government has to support because they're not productive anymore. The government has to support. And in the last 2-3 years, Chinese have not been able to replace the population. For population replenishment, you need a ratio of 2.1.
They're going to 1.1 or 1.2 now.
Yeah, for every death, you need to have 2.1 births if you want to have a growing population. For the last 3 to 4 years, they have not been able to meet that target. And so the population is going to keep declining, like Japan. That is the problem that they will face over a period of time. On the economy, they grew more than 10% for 30 years. But everybody knew that scale of growth cannot be sustained. And so when we talked about the Chinese economy, say about 6-7 years ago onwards, we expected that economy to come down slowly and steadily to 5%, 4%, and somewhere stabilize around 3%. And if they are going to grow at this rate, they will not be able to catch up with the US for the next 50 years. Because US is also growing at about 2.5%. And that on a base of 23 trillion, 24 trillion dollars. China will grow on 17 trillion dollars, and this difference mismatch is not going to catch up for about 40, 50 years. So what Shankar says is right. But the fact of the matter is it will be a close second. And that is where it will draw the power from. So that is what we need to be looking at.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Right. So there is there a perception? Yeah. Well, they have a lot of pseudonyms. There is a perception within the Indian military among generals that the possession of weapons from Russia, Western countries, and NATO grants a sustained advantage over the PLA. I don't know where this perception is. I think there's no perception at all of this kind.
There's absolutely no perception like this.
No perception of this. Hey, we'll only laugh it off. Yeah. Look, you're looking at a guy who's revolutionized. In fact, today, I would like to tell everyone, today I gave a presentation to IDSA, and that's out on Twitter also, on leapfrogging on defense technologies. And one of the things I told them, I said, please study the artillery model in India, where we have transformed the Indian artillery into a completely Atma Bharat, self-indigenous artillery. We are no more a Russian artillery, we are not a British artillery, we are not a NATO artillery, we are not a US artillery. We are an Indian artillery, totally Indian. And I said, that's the model I give people. And you also look at Navy. All our ships which are coming off are all, Indian. We have our own aircraft carrier. Yeah, if you talk of fitment, some fitments will always come from all over. That's a given. But it's our
that happens with every armed force.
Every armed force. So I don't think you should go away with this kind of a thinking at all. Right? I would like to dispel it. Having been in this business of procurement for good about 15, 20 years of my life. Okay. And I'm sure, you have anything else, Narsi, please.
No, absolutely fine. See, we have been looking at Atmanirbhar Bharat for quite some time. Only thing is it's got speed now.
Yeah. Right. Now, this is meant for me, Narsi. Rabindra, you have given about 6-7 points against me. Okay. This is not the forum, and the subject is also doesn't pertain to this thing. During the open hour, which is there on Sunday, ask these questions and I'll answer you. Okay. So you are trying to make it personal, so we'll leave it at that. Okay. Right. So this is Ritika Devi. So how will we catch up with China? Our GDP is 3.7 trillion and China latest GDP is 20 trillion. Forget China competing US. How will we compete? We are so far behind than China.
Good. It's a good question. I get asked this question on almost every forum where I speak on China. Okay. First thing, Ritika, is this. We need to decide what we want to do. That is not get into competition with anybody. If you get into competition with somebody, you'll always find it a trouble. I'll tell you what. Today, if you have to match with China, platform to platform, you will need $500 billion plus dollars, which you can't afford because your own defense budget is around $70-80 billion. There's no way you'll be able to do that. What you need to do is to see what amount of deterrence you want to create and prepare your capabilities to that. Don't compete platform to platform. Don't compete economy to economy. Like, for example, China has set on the goals, as I told you. Now, India is setting its goals for 2047. Each department in the government is making a plan as to what they would be what India would be in 2047 and how to prepare for that, how to go through that path. That is what we should be doing. Not look at it in comparison with, say, US or China or anybody else. We should decide where we want to be and then we should work towards that. And let us not compete with anybody. Please take the example of US and Russia. The USSR. That competition is the one which broke USSR. So we should not get into that.
Get into competition.
We should actually be looking at what we need to do and then grow to that.
Yeah, एक तो हम अब खुद अपना जो हम कर सकते हैं वो करो, जो सही है वो करो. और जब हम सही जो है वो करेंगे सब कुछ हो जाएगा। जहां तक चाइना का सवाल है, उनका जो आप बोल रहे हो कि उनका जीडीपी 17 ट्रिलियन है, 20 ट्रिलियन है, आप कुछ भी बोल सकते हो, but I'll give you one fundamental thing about how you know assess the GDP of China. What China is doing militarily is a different thing. They're putting money into it for whatever they can. There's no doubt that it's a very strong GDP. But remember, when you dig a ditch and you fill it back, and you pay a chap for filling the ditch and digging the ditch and paying the filling the ditch back, your GDP has gone up. It counts to your GDP. So why am I saying this? आप चाइना में देखिए, इन्होंने इतना घर बना लिया, वो भी जीडीपी है, खाली पड़े हैं, वो भी जीडीपी है। उन्होंने इतना इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बना लिया, वो भी खाली चल रहे हैं। उनका जो रेलवे है, हाई स्पीड रेलवे ट्रैक्स हैं, वो रेल है, वो उनका रिटर्न ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट ही नहीं हो रहा है, वो भी जीडीपी है। अगर आप जीडीपी के माध्यम से चलोगे मैथमेटिक्स के साथ, वो आप कहीं नहीं पहुंचोगे। China has got a lot of dead GDP, right, which is non-performing GDP. So, and China is GDP fixated. So we should not become GDP fixated. We should become growth. We should look at growth. And when you talk of growth, you have to look inward as to what growth means for each Indian, right? And then go up to say, okay, your security and everything else. It is better to talk of growth than looking at GDP. So this is my personal view. And yeah, if you have any other view, Narsi, please
No,
go
that's
ahead.
fine. See, GDP is only one measurement.
Measure.
That measurement is fine. That is fine. That shows one growth. And then they brought in a PPP, which again is skewing the entire growth pattern and everything else. So that is, leave that aside. We should be worried about what we need to grow, where we need to reach, and then we should work towards it.
Yeah.
That is the bottom line.
Okay. I think we've had a very nice discussion on the initiatives, global initiatives of China. बहुत अच्छा डिस्कशन रहा है और बहुत सवाल हैं। लास्ट में बहुत लोग सवाल पूछ लिया। अगर बहुत लोगों ने पहले ही पूछ लिया होता तो हम पेश कर सकते थे कि इतना सवाल करना है। आप कृपया इसको दीजिए। एनी केस, संडे के दिन मैं एक ओपन आवर कर रहा हूँ, उसमें आके पूछिए, मैं सवाल को आंसर करूंगा। And I must thank Gen Narasimhan for having come for this show and put across the global initiatives of China बहुत अच्छी तरीके से, क्योंकि ये अमूमन हम सबको पता नहीं है इनके बारे में, और ये धुंधला सा ही रहता है। और इनका जो टैक्टिक है, पहले कुछ करो, उसको ज्यादा दिखाओ मत, फिर बाद में कुछ करो, और फिर आप एक दिन पहचान जाओगे कि एक बड़ा सा ये भैंस आपके घर के बाहर बैठा है, वो जो हिलेगा नहीं, ठीक, और उसको हिलाने के लिए कुछ करना पड़ेगा खास, right? So this is what global initiatives of China are. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Jal Narasimhan, and Jai Hind to all
Welcome.
of you. Yeah,
Most
thank
welcome.
you. Good evening.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Good night. Good night.